Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Dr. Gosalia. Today, I'm excited because this guy is one of my favorite audiologists. We always have a great time every time we meet up. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. So I'm just going to bring him in. I'm going to introduce you guys to Dr. Paul Dibala. So as soon as Zoom gets back on, we are in quarantine still, so we're Zooming it. So welcome, Dr. Dibala. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I didn't know we were going to get dressed up today. Otherwise, I would have something nicer.
Well, I'm actually thankful that we're doing this today because it reminded me to shower. I got the reminder 15 minutes in, so I ran downstairs, etc. But you shouldn't feel too bad because
Okay.
if I'm wearing shorts. I don't know if you can see this from here. I'm kind of all business from here up, right, and then down. I'm just khaki shorts. So it's
Party
it's
down
all
below,
good.
business up top. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And you didn't have to shower. We can't smell anything from here. So,
I know. Well, I won't go any further than that.
oh, good call. Good call. So, every time we meet up, we always have way too much fun. And
Yes, it's
we laugh so much that our bellies are hurting. We've
a
had some
serious
great
problem.
nights, which we won't go into detail today. We had AAAs, almost every AAA that are together. It's always a hoot. But I'm going to keep us both on task today. I hope that's a good deal for you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Yes, I'm doing the best. So first of all, let's dive in. So you earned your PhD from UT Dallas Callier Center. I know a lot of folks that have graduated from there or even work there currently. So tell us, how did you get out of every profession out there? How did you find audiology?
Sure. I have kind of a typical story. I was a speech pathology undergrad,
Okay.
but the reason I got into that is I stuttered as a kid. I mean, this might shock you as much as I talk, but I stuttered as a kid, and I was looking in something around communications, et cetera, in college, and fell into instead of speech therapy, which then evolved into audiology. I had a great audiology undergraduate professor, Dr. Frank Brister. He's actually passed on. But he was awesome. He was the hardest professor I ever had at that university, and was a really positive influence. And he, got me interested and kind of ushered me into things, and then ended up then going to grad school at UT Dallas. And I was not only I was there for a good 10 years between my master's and PhD. I was working there as an audiologist
Mhm.
while I was in school. And then did some research there, et cetera. So that's really where I cut my professional teeth, or really my clinical teeth over there, so to speak.
Now you have some famous colleagues that were with you in your program, right?
Yeah, it was kind of amazing. I mean, you had the jerkers going through there. You had all kinds of people, and they were always having lectures, and people were coming through. It was a great opportunity to just sit down. Who was I? I was just some grad student, but they were having lunch, and you could sit down or you go listen to a lecture or whatnot. So it was a great place. And just a lot of good people all around. The people that worked in the clinic, the people that worked the front desk. It was a really great place to be as far as the people. And I could start naming people, but then I would forget somebody and I'd insult somebody. So I would have to mention Dr. Thibodeau, who is my dissertation advisor, obviously too. But another great example of a great audiologist, great researcher, and just a real positive influence on my life.
Well, good call on naming names otherwise, because I was
Yeah.
going to names I wouldn't even go there. So, as I mentioned earlier, I know that the first time I met you was at a AAA conference. I can't
Yes.
remember how long ago because it just all blurs together at this point.
Right.
And at the time, I think you were the president of AudiologyOnline, which
Yep.
a lot of us still use those resources to
Yep.
get a continuing education. So that was a great company and still is. Then you moved over to become president of Healthy Hearing, which I know
hmm
everyone's heard of. And I think you drove that up quite a bit too, and you
Yep.
scaled to a very large business, and that was acquired. And now you're the partner and VP of strategy at AudiologyDesign.
Yeah.
So, and actually, most recently, which I'm
Yep.
sure people don't realize, you're actually also a game show host, a social media
Yeah.
host, which I've had
You could
the
call it that. You could call it that.
Good. But your career started right around when the internet was kind of gaining momentum.
hmm
What was it about the internet that drove this passion into this kind of niche of business or audiology?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing because I was always into computers even as a kid. My parents got me an Apple IIe, for those of you who remember that, and I taught myself BASIC and would program it. I mean, I was kind of a nerd, right? And that was in middle school, and it kind of went away for a while, and then I went into school and did school undergrad. And it wasn't until, and again, this influence of my undergraduate audiology professor, he knew I was going to grad school, and he said, "Hey, you need to take a statistical research class." You know, good advice, right? And it was taught by the psychology department. And I went, and the professor was a real character. And I can remember, I can't remember, I believe it was the spring of my senior year. So this is 1994. So I'll, date right there. So if you look back around, I mean, that's when Yahoo, okay, was just a directory. There was no Google. There was no Facebook. Those things were still 10 years away, easily. And he pulled up his laptop and he projected that on the screen, which was a big deal at the time.
Uh-huh.
And he showed us Yahoo. And I mean, I can still put myself in the chair in the classroom and remember where I was and thinking, that's incredible.
Right.
And it prompted me to say, okay, how do I get a Unix account on the server? The old where you go into the room and it had all the monitors, right? And I was teaching myself how to use email. I mean, it was all text based. And then when I got into grad school, actually, and well, I saw it as a great tool. I don't know what it was, but I saw it as a great tool. And I remember thinking, and I remember thinking, this could be a great tool for my profession, and this could be a great tool for the patients that we serve. And in the back of my mind, that's always been what I would say has been my personal professional mission. I want to make digital, the internet, the web, whatever that is, a useful tool for my profession and the patients that we serve. And that's just always driven me. So when I was in grad school, I got my second Unix account. And with that, what was really cool, that's when the web was just starting to grow. You got a free website that was on the university server. So I taught myself how to create a website. I think it was all text. And I then started to build some of the first websites for audiology from there that were just my own. I was in grad school. I was young, dumb, and full of fun, as we like to say. I had no idea how to run a business. But I just kept thinking, this is so cool. This is going to change everything. This is going to make such a difference. And what was funny is back then I actually registered the domain name healthyhearing.com, just had it. I thought, ooh, that might be a cool website for consumers one day. And I built the first free classified ads for audiology. I had their own little mini Yahoo. And in the middle of my graduate career, I actually sold it all because I think, I'm just messing around. I'm going to go be a PhD and be a professor one day. I actually sold it to the ownership of AudiologyOnline at the time because they were making it. And what was funny, by the time I came around to the end of my career at UT Dallas, I had decided, I figured out I'm good at being an audiologist, but I can't do it every day. And I have tremendous respect for people, clinical audiologists who can. And then I also figured out that, well, I like to do research, but I kept coming back to this whole internet passion thing. And at that point, AudiologyOnline had grown. And I remember I called up the owner and I said, hey, remember me? And he said, yeah, come on. And it was just kind of a neat thing. I was employee number 8 there and learned a lot, helped it grow. And then eventually, we grew Healthy Hearing, et cetera. And that defined a huge chunk of my life, as you mentioned, professional life of there too. And it's funny to think about that I was just sitting in an office typing away thinking, that could be kind of interesting, and you do it. If you look at your life, sometimes you can see those little bits and pieces and how they connect. And what's neat now, when I look at it all, Audiology Online was a lot about making the internet useful for the profession. We really brought continuing education, a lot of news and information forward. That was really fulfilling to be able to do that. I got the best part of that was collaborating with all the audiologists. I mean, just like what you're doing here, it's a great field. We have great people in this field, and it's great to circle up with them. And I had this great excuse because who was I? But hey, I was this guy at Audiology Online, and I had this excuse to call up all these really cool people that I'd read about in journals and say, hey, you want to do an interview? Or hey, you want to come online and do an online seminar? And met a lot of people and connected with a lot of people, and did a lot of good things, and then got to move over into Healthy Hearing, which really got me into more consumer marketing, right? That's really where started to expand, and really where I started to shift, where I was going, or I've been going, really to more marketing and search marketing conferences every year than I do to audiology conferences, because I'm really trying to find, well, what's the way that I can make digital marketing useful, right, for our clinics, so that I can speak properly to our patients, so that I can connect them to good care, right? Because ultimately that's what we want. We want good patient care. But you've got to do it properly, and you've got to be smart about it. And so that's how I really, again, then re-educated myself again while I was at Healthy Hearing, growing that. I think when I left, we were up to 5-6 million unique visitors a year. And then what's great is myself and a partner, we actually bought out. AudiologyDesign has been around for over 15 years. But us, we bought out. We're all independent. We're all individuals. People ask us if we're owned by anybody. No, we're just individual company. But we said, we know this business. We know the profession. We know the people, and we were able to buy that. And probably over the past couple of years, it's been running with my partner, and then I've been able to come in, and it's just a great connection now of these two things I've been doing, right, as far as working with the professionals and working with the consumers. And so what's cool now is that I get to say, hey, we've got great people that are working every day to make this work, and now I get to continue to look a little bit forward on these things. That's why I'm in the position of Vice President of Strategy, because I said, I don't want to work, you probably heard this before, I don't want to work in the business as much. I want to work on the business, right? It's any business owner would know, you really have to do that every once in a while. And right now I have the luxury, based on how we're set up, to say, hey, you know what? I want to step out and look 6 months, a year down the road, so that when we get it to a certain point, I've got the rest of the team that I can say, okay, you guys run with it, make it better, execute it. And it's this great feedback loop that it's really been enjoyable to be able to have that focus and work with the team in that way. So
Yeah, and you guys have done an incredible job.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
I was part of the webinar you put on yesterday and learned about Google Trends and all kinds of things, which we hear about them, but we actually don't go and search these things out. And so I did a little homework yesterday after the presentation. Yeah. Really good. So kudos on that.
So you checked all my facts, and you found that, hey, that he was actually telling the truth a little bit there.
Young, dumb, and full of fun. He's not one of them.
I'm old, dumb, and full of fun.
No, he's not two of them now. Yeah. I'm sorry. Two of them, so.
I do want to say, though, and I really mean this. What is cool about all that too? What I'm really enjoying at this point, because the team that I've got there, it's really great, because I'm pulling things that I've found. I'm pulling from the team on things that they found. Yep. Getting feedback and pulling it together. So a lot of that yesterday. I was lucky enough to stand up and be the talking head. But it was really based on a lot of effort that a lot of people put in. I mean, I have someone helping me make the slides look good, which was nice, which I normally don't have. So that's what was cool too. That it was a good thing as a company for us to all pull that together and say, hey, yeah, let's, because we really haven't been doing. It's an interesting thing about the company. We really haven't been doing a ton of outreach, a ton of marketing, because we have a lot of referrals. It's not unlike private practice, where a lot of your referrals are from patients who tell their friends, right? And we've been lucky enough to be able to do that as well. But now with everything that's going on, et cetera, we said, hey, now's the time that we should be really focusing more on this and be able to shift. And we're hoping to put more and more of that out. So if you liked it, check out our website and pay attention for more.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the things that always comes up when we're talking in these groups, especially when you're looking at word of mouth stuff, is you hear from audiologists that there's all these threats that are coming, one way or the other. There's all these threats, which may or may not really be threats, but they feel like they're threats.
Sure.
What are you hearing, or what are you seeing in terms of threats to audiology? And then what kinds of solutions do you think that, as healthcare providers, we can be providing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a half glass full kind of a guy. And so I honestly don't tend to think as much in threats, and maybe I don't want to sound like I'm better than anybody or anything like that by any means, but I tend to think about opportunities all the time. Right. I tend to, and I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, there are no threats or any of those things. Those are there. But for my brain to be able to process them, I've got to look at them and say, okay, is this an opportunity? I mean, yes, it could be a problem, it could be a threat. And really, to me, this is what's been my top of mind because of everything that's going on right now with COVID-19. So for those of you who don't look at the date of, or I can tell the date of this is April 24th when we're filming this, right? So if you're watching this later, we're right in the middle of it all, And I know this has been talked about ad nauseum going on right now. And, it would be an understatement to say that that's a threat, for example. But what I keep thinking about is the opportunity that we have going on as a profession to move forward in patient care. And of course, I'm a guy who's, again, always thinking 6 months, a year down the road. I've always seen, as I've said before, my history as, again, the internet as a tool to make it better for my profession and the patients we serve, right? It's both of those things. It can't be one. And I've always seen limitations to audiologic care, and I'm not the first person to say this, in that it's too hands-on. It's good that it's hands-on. We're very good at it, and I've said this before. I mean, audiologists are at their best when they're sitting down with the patient across from them, counseling them. I put any audiologist, sit them down. Almost without exception, you're going to see impressive individuals helping people, communicating with people, helping them through these issues, right? But we need to find additional ways to serve people that way. We need to find additional ways that we can do telehealth better. And there's always been restrictions. I think of it as, if you think of all the different groups, you've got consumers, you've got professionals, you've got industry, you've got regulatory bodies. They could always point at each other, And again, this is much simplified. An audiologist could say, and fairly, well, I can't do XYZ testing because we don't have the right equipment, or because legally I don't allow it, right? And then the industry could say, well, we have the equipment that you could test remotely, but legally we can't be able to do that, right? And so everybody's kind of pointing fingers at one or the other. And frankly, sometimes, this is what's kind of funny, I think sometimes, especially in the older generations, they're not as interested in that. Well, I don't want to do that. It's kind of scary. It's digital, those things. And what's happening right now, it's happening live. It's happening day by day in real time. This has been fascinating. By the way, if you want to hear more, tune in for my webinar tomorrow. But, it's plug it in, plug it in. There you go.
Yeah, I'll cut it out.
But in all seriousness, it's kind of like when I've got kids, right? So when all your kids are arguing and you go, okay, everybody's in timeout. You've got to figure out a way to work together if you're going to make this work. So all of a sudden, everybody drops whatever, that's a technical sound, that they've got, because they say, hey, we've got to figure out a solution. And that's what's incredible right now, everybody is taking the gloves off. Okay, they're not trying to defend their territory. They're putting their fists down and they're saying, we've got to make this work. Right. And you're seeing it from every angle. Even and you heard me say this yesterday. Grandma didn't get run over by a reindeer. Grandma's on Zoom these days. Seniors, they're being cut off by a lot of their social connections that they had. Churches are closed, right? And they've got to find some other way to connect. They're being forced to get onto Skype. They're getting forced to get onto Zoom. You're having to do these interviews via Zoom, right? Because of what's going on. And I'm kind of pissed off because I wanted to go to Los Angeles, hang out with you. But beside the point, all these things are converging where we could have, really improved patient care where we have much more options that we have for patients, whether they want to do something digitally or whether they want to do something in person or they want to do some hybrid. Everybody's moving forward so we can do a better job at that. So, it's kind of the elephant in the room right now as far as what's the biggest threat to audiology. What's the biggest threat to mankind right now, man, woman, person, kind, excuse me, of those things. But, we get around the corner, if we could really take an opportunity to put our fists down, drop the gloves, I'm pretty excited about this. So,
yeah. So where do you see audiology going over the next 10 years?
Oh, wow. Well, and I think it's an extension of what I'm talking about right now. I think audiologists have to look at themselves more as a consultant. I think they have to I think they, and I'll just say this as myself. I mean, I think we all do this to ourselves. I mean, some people call it imposter syndrome. I think sometimes we underestimate what we're capable of. You know, you never. It's like the whole growth mindset, right? If you don't get the growth mindset, you underestimate what you're able to do. You don't realize that you learn through your mistakes. That strengthens connections and helps you achieve things that you wouldn't otherwise do, right? On those things, and I feel like, my opinion, this, over the next 10 years, with this big push from COVID-19, that if instead of seeing all these things, telehealth, over the counter, big box, etc., is it going to be different? Yeah, it's going to be different, but we can really position ourselves as consultants and as experts, which we are, by the way, and really do more good than what we did before. It's almost kind of like if you it's a classic management issue. I've run into this, right? You've got to find some point where you delegate, right? You've got to find somewhere where you step out of, like what I said before, instead of working in the business, you're working on the business. So not that you would be stepping out of clinical practice per se, but it might look a little bit different. And in doing that, you're going to serve more people, and you're going to be able to take advantage of a lot of these clinical digital tools that are coming out. Because in one way or the other, this thing that I describe right now of, hearing aids being completely delivered online and hearing tests being delivered online and over the counter, it's actually here. I mean, it's here. I can give multiple examples of those things, and it's going to be a question of, how much are we going to embrace this or not? Are we going to let somebody else define where we are in this, or are we going to define where are we going to be on this? And are we going to show everybody how much big of a difference that we're going to make and can make in that?
Yeah, and I think some of that has to do with state licensures and
Sure.
some of the ways that the rules and regulations are written up, but those will have to change.
Right, and they are changing. I mean, right now in the state of Texas, I'm a licensed audiologist in Texas. There's a temporary order that changes how we're able to function. Now, I know it's temporary, but the fact that has changed, and the fact that it opens up opportunities, it gives everybody to give a look at things differently. No one could. They didn't have that perspective before. It's kind of like, okay, like you've seen all the pictures of, for example, all the smog that's gone away, right? No one's seen that in 20, 30 years. They've forgotten. Or I think the canals in Venice are now a clear blue on those things. So right now, all the climate scientists and the environmentalists are gathering tons of data of what's happening right now, so they can show, hey, it's okay. It does make a difference, and we'll be okay. And I think what's going to happen from this, because we are going to have to give patient care through this. Okay, even if you were to say this is all temporary, right? In 3 months, it's going to go back to the way that it was. I think we're kidding ourselves if we say that, time-based, or even how it ends up. But let's say in 3 months, I don't think it's gonna go back to the way that it was. And I think everybody's going to go, well, wait a minute. We did a few things differently, and that wasn't too bad.
Isn't too bad.
Maybe we can, okay, this didn't work. Okay, this sucked. Like we might find this, oh no, we're not going to do that anymore. No. But you know what? This thing that seemed really kind of jacked up, that worked pretty well. Better than this thing we've been doing for forever, of those things. And there's research going on some of these things too, related to different ways to approach telehealth and audiology. So it's going to push that forward. We're not going to go, I don't know if we'll go Jetsons forward into the future, to use that reference to date myself, as far as how we're doing things. But it's going to change where we're at. So I like I said, I don't see that as a threat. I see that as an opportunity for us as a profession.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, tell us one thing that many people don't know about you. You surprise us.
Sure. I don't know if you know this about me. You might know this about me. This is something that a lot of people don't know about me, and definitely when they hear this about me, it doesn't surprise them. So in the little bio history that you gave, there was a small gap that was in there.
Yep.
That sometimes I put in there, and that's that when I was in college, I did this in high school too, but when I was at college, I was a cheerleader in college, but I had a full ride scholarship in cheerleading. And I was, if you ever watch those the national championships where they're in Florida and they're throwing everybody up in the air and doing that, I used to do that. I have 2 national championships.
Really?
Yeah, from that. And then people that know my personality, they kind of go, oh, okay. It explains a lot. So yeah, I guess that fits into my positivity mindset of those things.
I think you
So
also won a autographed Cardinals football at some point.
I did.
Yeah. Oh.
I bid for that. I paid good money for that.
Big money for that. Yeah.
Big money for that. Yeah, yeah. Because I wanted to give it to a worthy cause. You
Very
know, not only my money, but I knew that there would be an actually, it's a funny story. There's this underprivileged audiologist who's a huge fan of the Arizona Cardinals. And it was one of those things where I saw this audio. Okay, you know how they have it set up out there, right, where you can bid. And
just
I saw
the foundation just to give.
raise money for the foundation. And I was standing there talking to somebody, and I saw the audiologist walk by, and I know this audiologist. And they walked by, and they saw it, and you saw them get really excited. You know, you could just tell from their body language. And then all of a sudden, they just slumped. Like they just slumped. You know, physically, just saw like they were just beat. And I think it's because they couldn't afford to bid on it. That or they were too cheap to donate to the foundation, which is pretty sad, you know. And they walked off. And I thought, that's so sad because, you know, that person was really excited about that Arizona Cardinals football. So I went up there and did the buy it now price, and I shipped it to him. I don't want to name the person because then it might embarrass him.
Yeah, we'll keep that person anonymous.
Yeah, yeah. Are you next to me or below me in this?
I don't know.
Wherever you are, yeah, we won't name that person. So,
yeah, good for you. Yeah, you definitely earned that BS and whatever you earned. Very good. So, really appreciate you taking the time. You know, I know we're good buddies, so I appreciate you doing this. You're, you know, obviously a leader in our profession, and a lot of people look up to you. Now that you know you did this, that might change, but people still respect you and love you. So, I appreciate you doing this. Before I let you go, do you have any final words of wisdom or something you'd like to share with our audience?
I would really just like to continue that message of I know, you know, and I said this yesterday. I will say this actually. I didn't think about this before, but I'm going to change my message. I had one message, but I'm going to change it to a different one. And I think this is really important right now because I just want to remind everybody that right now, you know, there's a lot of stuff about what you should be doing and how we should be acting and all those things. And I was just mentioning it. Don't underestimate the importance of doing nothing. Because I don't know about, I mean, I'll speak for myself. This thing's been kicking my butt as upbeat and positive as I sound. This thing's been kicking my butt just, you know, dealing with things professionally, personally. You know, it's important to take care of yourself first. If you take care of yourself first, you'll be able to take care of your family, you'll take care of your business, your patients, all those folks. So it's this thing that I've had to remind myself. And so that's all I'd like to say. And if you know, reaching out to your professional colleagues is on the professional side is an important way to do that. So please be doing that. You know, I count you as one of those too. And I've been appreciative that I've been able to reach out to you during this. You know, thank you for involving me in this and then some of the shenanigans that I've been doing online too, just so we can have a break and try and gain some perspective on things.
Yep. Perfect. Love you, brother. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for doing this.
Love
Yeah.
you too.